the Museum of Pop Culture right in Seattle Center. It was very successful. And this is a venue where Drez is also is an entrepreneur. Besides being an artist, he organizes Through the Eyes of Art, which is another big African festival here in Seattle every February. So we used the same venue, and so Madaraka Festival was something that surprised our community, the African community here.
All part of the Madaraka Festival family. Now, this year's Madaraka Festival extravaganza is set to kick off in May in New York City, and then it will go to Atlanta, it will go to Dallas, and then to Seattle, Washington, with more venues to be announced. Like Simon is going to be telling us about that. For tickets, please visit madarakafestival.com. Everything is there. Instructions, kila kitu, depending on what festival you want to go to, whether it's New York, whether it's Seattle, all the tickets are there. Now, Simon will shortly be talking to us about the lineup of artists we expect to see. We've already talked to two right here on set, so I want you to stay tuned for that. But before we continue, I quickly want to come back to studio to you, Uno, and I'm just going to ask you, are we going to talk about Pastor Mackenzie and the growth of deadly religious cults in Kenya in the social segment? Ahmad, we skip that for today because this story is just very annoying. Uno, Mike.
This story has so many angles, has got so many... Okay, whatever is going on is bad, but there's always a different angle that this can be looked at, because there's the aspect of religion, there's the aspect of being a cult, cultism,
yeah.
Cult.
Cultism. We made up our word.
And the response to which certain religious so-called leaders or certain religious persons, the effect with which, or how hard the hammer comes down on them, whereas there are others that nothing ever happens to them.
Okay.
Like Brother Paul. But we shall see.
You mean Kamlesh Patni?
That one.
And Kamlesh Patni is in Zimbabwe.
He's in Zimbabwe.
I think Drez knows about him. He's been stealing money from Drez's people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Drez will tell you about that.
I think he may have a plot by Drez.
So that is probably an angle we can look at. You know, in as bad as it is bad, but then also now is it that there's a desperation for hope? Is there desperation for hope? People want something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So that's,
if we have time.
Yes, that's going to be in the social segment. So Askilizaji, stay tuned and jump in the comments. Tell us whether you want us to have a conversation about this or we just continue this exciting conversation. At some point, like the guests we have are going to go. So just let us know that this is a conversation you want to have, or we just keep it for the day. And I want to go back right now to our guests, this is now to all the three of you, but I'm going to start with you, Simon. Maybe just give us a quick background of the Madaraka Festival, because a lot of people were seeing the Madaraka Festival for the first time on that flyer. Maybe tell us when it started, how frequently have you been doing it, and at what point did it get to a point where it started hosting very big acts from Africa? Simon, twende kazi.
Asante. So just to touch on the topic you guys are talking about, Pastor Mackenzie, I follow what's going on back home very keenly. I think the challenge we have there is that our people, especially Kenyans, we love success. It doesn't matter how people get there, but we just love successful people and we worship successful people. And so when we see a successful preacher or we see a successful artist, we just want to be like them. We don't care whether we do that and we compromise our integrity. We just want to do it. So all the evil things that we are seeing around this situation is as a result of people just believing in these individuals because they just want to be like these people. And it's something that we really need to sit down with and reflect on and really talk about where we want to go as a country. Back to Madaraka Festival. I want to say that Madaraka Festival really, as I was saying, it began in Kenya long before I moved to the US. It was not Madaraka Festival. It was Unite the People concert. The very first one was right after the post-election violence. So I moved to Seattle in June 2010, and I actually first came to the US in 2009 for work. I visited about 8 different states fundraising for a big NGO that I was working for as the field director for Africa. I worked in Liberia, South Sudan, Malawi, Uganda, Tanzania, Ghana. And so I was raising money in the US, and I visited Seattle during that trip. My girlfriend at the time was from Seattle. So I ended up moving here in 2010. When I moved here, I moved with the ideas that I already had in Kenya, where we are already using music to bring people together, to gather resources, raise money, mobilize people to give us the equipments that we needed. So we were sitting at a living room here in Seattle, where what I was doing is whenever I went back to Kenya, I would create videos of the work that we were doing, the music programs that we were running, and I would go to people's living room. I would make Kenyan dinners, and I would show them the videos that this is the work we are doing in Kenya. What ideas do you have of how we can grow this into something big, something major? So we were sitting in the living room of a brother of ours. His name is Owora Runga. Shout out to him. He's a Grammy-winning trumpet player. And so in his mother's living room, where we were sitting brainstorming of how can we take this One Vibe idea, One Vibe Africa idea to the next level. And at the time, he was touring the world with Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. And his photographer, the photographer for the same artist that Owora Runga was working with, was called Joseph Koenig. I had been with him in Kenya long before I moved to the US. And so both of them suggested that we ask Macklemore, who was really doing well at the time. He had just won a Grammy Award. And they said, look, if we all ask Macklemore to headline MADARAKA Festival, June was approaching. And so we said, since MADARAKA is approaching, let's just call it MADARAKA Festival and not Unite the People concert the way it used to be called in Kenya. And so that's when the name MADARAKA Festival came about, because June was approaching and we had the need to actually fundraise. So in 2014 is when we did the first MADARAKA Festival. It was in May, but very close to June 1st. So when we did that first MADARAKA Festival at the Museum of Pop Culture, right in Seattle Center, it was very successful. And this is a venue where Blaze is also is an entrepreneur. Besides being an artist, he organizes Through the Eyes of Art, which is another big African festival here in Seattle every February. So we used the same venue, and so MADARAKA Festival was something that surprised our community, the African community here. People have never seen African people lining up and rounding a building with excitement that, this is our event. We are ready for this. So people are really surprised by how many African people actually lived here. So the success of that event and the impact that we made, through that event lives until now. So since then, we've created a community. Every year since 2014, we've held MADARAKA Festival. Even during the pandemic, we held MADARAKA Festival. And Draze has interacted with this growth a lot. Okay. And so for me, I would say that those who are learning about MADARAKA Festival are just on time, but there are people who are, hardcore fans of MADARAKA Festival. For example, in 2019, we still did it, but it was in Kenya at Kisumu Beach Resort. We had over 4,500 people. Calligraph Jones was the headliner. Okay. Ben Soul, who is from the Sauti Sol, label, was also one of the headliners. Eric Omondi was the host in 2019 in Kenya. So we tested it in different places. In Seattle, in 2021, it was held at the Bellevue Youth Theater, which is like 10 minutes from Bill Gates' house and Jeff Bezos' house,